Organic means land free of chemicals for more than 3 years. Organic means you're not working with any GMO crops, animals fed only organic feed, and any processed foods that have the label of USDA organic on it have to be made from only organic resources. So that's what you're getting when you find something with the label of organic on it. Now, let me move to pesticides. What do we really mean when we're talking about pesticides? There's actually 4 different groups, at least, that fall into this group. So insecticides are those chemicals that are going to specifically kill insects. Herbicides are for killing the weeds. You might be familiar with things like Roundup as a typical herbicide that's used. There's also fungicides, which kill fungus that would be growing on plants. And then there's the rodenticides, specifically to go after the rodents. And these are some of the challenging chemicals that we are finding showing up in foods. They don't disappear very quickly. They show up in our foods. So let's take a look at where they're showing up. Starting on our list of the Dirty Dozen, I'm going to start with number 12. Number 12 on the Dirty Dozen is our tomatoes. Tomatoes that are not listed as organic can include different insecticides and fungicides on them. A couple that are listed here, that ambamectin is used for controlling insects and mite pests, and the chlorpyrifos inhibits enzyme activity related to nerve function. So this is a chemical specifically affects the nerves of the insects, and it is linked to disorders in humans as well. It's affecting our nervous system. So much so that it has already been banned in the European Union, but is not yet banned in the United States. A couple fungicides that are listed here. The tebuconazole inhibits enzyme activity related to cell membrane function. And metalaxyl is another system fungicide. So it gets into the system of the organism to stop fungicide from happening. So these are some of the things that have been measured on tomatoes that have been purchased from grocery stores and then tested. They have found these pesticides on them. Celery is number 11. Celery has some of the same insecticides that tomatoes have. This is getting sprayed on the leaves, and because we are eating the leaves and the stalks of this plant, it could very well be that we're going to be ingesting some of this as well. So number 11 is the celery. Number 10 is the pears. A couple interesting fungicides on this one. Carbendazime is toxic to the male reproductive system and is known as a hormone disruptor. And diphenylamine, this has been banned in Europe because it can form cancer-causing compounds. So these have also been tested and found to be on our produce. Then peaches. Peaches have the insecticides, so trying to kill off the insects, as well as the fungicides, trying to keep fungus from growing on the peach skins. And so it receives these chemicals on them. Number 8 is the cherries. All of those cherries can have a fungicide on them called cyhalothrin. And this is just one of a number of different chemicals that can show up on the cherries. Another one that surprised me a little bit was the bell peppers and the hot peppers. And so this is going to be some insecticides as well, sprays that are going to keep the bugs from getting at it, or sprays that are going to keep the fungus from growing on it. These are the primary things that are challenging. So even though peppers are excellent sources of vitamin C, excellent sources of minerals, and we do recommend hot peppers for medicinal use, but we need to get them organic and not otherwise, because when we get non-organic, then we're going to be diminishing the value that we get from these nutrients, from these sources. Grapes are number 6 on the list. So in order to keep those bugs away from the sweet sugars, they have been sprayed in numerous ways, and it's difficult to wash them off because they're such tiny, fragile fruits. It's not something that you're going to be able to wash off very easily, even with soap and water. It's better to buy this in the organic manner. Then apples. Apples have been on the Dirty Dozen list actually for quite a long time. And it's important to recognize here when we're even thinking about getting some type of apple pastries or getting apple sauce or apple juice, does it have the organic label on it? Because if it does not, then those chemicals like these fungicides could have gotten into the juice, could have gotten into the applesauce just as easily. The diphenylamine we had listed earlier as something with the pears. It's also on the apples because pears and apples are actually in the same group of fruits. And specifically this one is sprayed to deter or to stop storage scald. And storage scald is the formation of those brown spots or those black spots on the apples after they tend to sit for a while in storage. So the diphenylamine is helping to stop that type of a fungus growth. But as we listed earlier, the diphenylamine can also form cancer-causing compounds. And you can click on this link for the food news from the Environmental Working Group and get more details from their report on the apples. Nectarines are the next group. This fludioxanil or fludoxanil is another hormone disruptor. So that means it's interrupting your thyroid, it's interrupting your endocrine glands when you are purchasing a non-organic nectarine. Then number 3 on our list is the greens. This is a larger group: the kale, the collard greens, the mustard greens. Dacthal is a carcinogen and an endocrine disruptor. There have been discussions about removing this from the list of available chemicals for the farmers to use, but it has not yet been removed from the list. So even though we can describe kale or collard greens, mustard greens as excellent sources for minerals and vitamins, we want to make sure especially that these are organic sources. Even looking at your frozen vegetables, does it have the organic label on it? And if not, there could be some of these pesticides on it. So check out the kale sheet from the Environmental Working Group. Number 2 on the list, famotidine, another hormone disruptor, and permethrin. Permethrin is a neurotoxin, sometimes also associated with causing tremors and seizures. One of the challenges here that was noted with the spinach group is many times, or there are times when even the organic spinach is going to have some of these chemicals on it because the organic farm was nearby a non-organic farm and there was some blowover that happened. So we do want to especially focus on getting organic spinach so that we get the full benefits from organic spinach. And number one this year for the Dirty Dozen is our strawberries. Strawberries have been tested to show 20 different pesticides in the samples that were tested. And strawberries have been in the top of this environmental working group's list of Dirty Dozen for 5 years in a row. One of the interesting things to note for strawberries is 90% of the strawberries in the United States is grown in California. So it wouldn't take much for us to be able to control the exposure of chemicals on the strawberries if we can just help one state set the standard. And of course, California tries to set the standard in a number of ways. Hopefully we can help encourage them to set the standards here for our food. A very interesting site to look up here would be the Edible Schoolyard Project. Look on their website. They've got some great school projects as well as videos that describe strawberries and pesticides. For all of these foods, then, we're encouraging you to put together a personal plan in which you are able to buy organic, especially for these top dozen that are the most contaminated of all of our foods. Other foods are not so much, and so you could provide conventional. One of the ones that I often talk about there is that beans, like legumes and navy beans and pinto beans, and those are not typically over sprayed or anything like that. So those I will often get conventional and not worry about organic, but there is organic available as well. But these dozen here, I do like to focus on getting organic as much as possible, as not to overburden our bodies. But a personalized plan is available for you. I can help you develop a personalized plan and would love to work with you on that. If you have any questions, just contact me at nutritionproportion@gmail.com or check our website.